job and you're looking for an environment, it doesn't matter where it is. Think about those questions, because you want to be encouraged to be able to run. You want to run free. You want to run, okay, not just walk. You want to run. You've got lots of energy. You're smart. You're bright people. You're dedicated. You know, you're in school working your tail off. Okay. When you get out in the workplace, you want to be in that place and you can just run and sprint, run free, just go for it.
You never wake up in the morning and think about, oh, I got to go to work this morning, or I got to do this. As my dad said, you just get up and start living. You just get up and you start doing the things that got to be done. And that is such a shift from working in a business or working in a job where you've got to go somewhere and you've got to do something.
There are more people drinking wine in America than ever before, and although we're beginning to develop some international markets, I think that it's going to continue to be an American market, certainly for my lifetime, and probably yours. And I think it was last year or the year before that the consumption of wine in America actually became greater than the consumption of beer. And that's a radical shift from where we were 20 years ago. The United States, I believe, has now just gone to becoming the top consumer of wine in the world. Italy and France, I think we just surpassed them. And so there clearly is a capacity for, at least right now, for consumption. And that's the good news. I mean, the bad news is that these things rise and fall.
What happened in the late 50s and early 60s was a group of people came up from California who decided that Oregon was a place where you could produce fine wine. And the reason that they thought that that would work is they had looked at Europe in particular and said, if you look at Oregon and you see that we're on the 45th parallel, you know, when you drive from Salem to Portland, you cross the 45th parallel. They sort of followed the 45th parallel all the way around and said, where does that hit in Europe? And where it hits is wine country, particularly in France and in Germany. And they said, well, if you can make fine wine there at that parallel, then there's a decent chance that you can do it here.
The reason why my parents chose this spot, because in their research, they decided that if the land had been successful as orchards, it could be potentially successful as grapes as well. And the neighboring farmers used to call this the banana belt, that it was a couple degrees warmer. And now we know that the Dundee Hills, because we're protected by the Chehalem Mountains, where you know, on the other side of Newburgh, and then the coastal range, the Dundee Hills does have a little bit more protection in terms of the weather, and so we are a couple degrees warmer than surrounding areas.
But also, part of what they're selling is this notion of independent, you know, people who are connected to the land and are more interested in quality than in getting rich. And you know, it's part of the story. It's part of the marketing pitch. But it's a real challenge, I think, for marketing, because you're not just selling Gallo. You're not just selling Mondavi. You're selling Oregon.
Put 6 bottles in front of you that they all look the same initially, but where they come from and how they're made and who made them, that's a big deal. So quality assurance is a huge thing. You're going to
ante up in the game for a wine business is you got to make good wine. If you don't make good wine, I mean, you're toast. You've got to make good wine. But that image, the branding, the message that you want to you want your customers to see you as and perceive you as is very important.
Everybody in Oregon is working on brand Oregon, right? So they've all got their individual brands, but everybody is collaborating in the sense of brand Oregon.
But you are each a brand. Well, in the wine business, wines are brands. And so understanding brands and what goes into brands, so the design creativity that enables someone to identify with a brand is a big deal. Learn that well. Study that.
That's unique to Oregon. There's this sense of respect and cooperation that you don't find in a lot of other areas, and certainly not in a lot of other businesses. And it's something that they really treasure and are doing their best to maintain. It's hard though.
Yeah. Rob Stewart was my first boss in Oregon, so that's kind of a nice thing that came here straight from him. I worked at ERAF for 3 years in the cellar, and then I moved on into the service industry. I worked for Tina's in Dundee for 14 years, and then been here for almost a year. When you live in this sort of region with wine just everywhere, everything's so great, terrific, rising tide floats all boats sort of thing. There's no wrong answer when it comes to wine out here.
There's all this intermingling that you're probably going to learn as you keep talking to people in the wine industry in the valley here, that everybody kind of knows everybody. Everybody's sort of, not so much related, but knows of each other. So
the wine industry was just starting to really take off. I mean, it was already established, but all the, couple hundred new wineries since I started. And I was lucky enough that I was friends with Maria Stewart, so my first label was Big Fire.
Interviewing people, I don't know how many we had in the room that we had hired, and I think the only thing I told them is they're all going to be spoiled because they're never going to work for an owner like this in their career as they move on, because Wall Street basically is where most of our money comes from for our industry, and it's a different feeling. It really is. So working for an independent that has this kind of vision and this kind of passion for doing things right.
It's a passion thing, and my point here is that passion from Frank, passion from Trish, passion from Marie and I, and a decision to run our lives, be in control of our lives. That's what drove us here. So we're all over the world.
It's right here inside. It's the passion to help, to make them better. And that is the real pursuit. If the pursuit comes from your heart, you'll do well.
I love it. We don't have to travel all over the world to meet new people, and they all come to us.
You have to find passion for yourself. Run that way. This is run on the passion of its owner, which is that he wants to make good wine, regardless of whether he loses money, because he does lose money certain years, especially with organic vineyards. A year like this one, 2011, we lost a lot of money.
And I think that's something unique about the wine industry is that you can have a great lifestyle. Heck, we're working with wine and food all day. You can, have a great family life, have a great work life. You're just not going to make a ton of money. And I think that's the trade-off that people take when they go into the wine industry. The old saying is that the fastest way to make $1 million in the wine industry is to start with $10 million.
hard.
They better doggone be better than me.
Detail-oriented. Ask questions.
Energy.
Hardworking.
You can be personable, adaptable.
You have to sell yourself.
And when I look at the resume, I look for spelling errors.
Attention to detail, a sense of humor, and getting along with everyone.
Be adaptable.
Even if you do find yourself getting offered a job that you think is below your talents, don't assume that that means that, you know, you're not worth anything or that you're going to be stuck there for a long time.
Keep your mind open to anything.
Keep my options open.
Future-oriented.
And be an expert in what I do.
Passion, like having passion for something.